see. Yeah, it looks like we've got a good group. Well, welcome. So this is the, what is it, the May meeting of Softland Partners Boston. It's kind of like I have to check myself and see where we are and who I am and all that. If I haven't met you, my name's Bill Kenny, and certainly welcome. I've turned on recording. We don't share this broadly, but we certainly want to have it as a record so that if people want to listen back or people have to listen early or leave early, we have it for them, and certainly also to help other folks start chapters like this in other places. So more kind of training and just background. So for those, it looks like a lot of people have muted themselves. If you haven't yet muted yourself, please do. That helps us keep the sound quality up and make sure that who's ever speaking has the full floor. And if you start eating like Doritos or something, we don't have to listen to it. And I would just suggest, and these meetups are always interesting. Obviously, we're so used to meeting in person. Getting used to the virtual format's a little different. So we want to create as much of an atmosphere here as if we're in the same room. I would really encourage you as we go through the agenda, if you hear from someone who you want to get to know better or know more about, feel free to chat with them, use the chat feature, either privately chat with them and you can just shift over to speak to specific people, or chat generally in the group. Again, in a meetup, we'd have all sorts of sidebar conversations, and we want to encourage you to do that. Oh yeah, and you may not have a cold beverage next to you now, but certainly feel free to come to your meetup with your cold beverage, whatever it happens to be. I'm drinking iced tea, but if you'd like that beer, wine, or anything else, have at it. We certainly want to help everybody have as much fun. All right, we've got other people who are drinking. That's good. Good to keep hydrated here. So what we're going to do, our agenda is pretty straightforward. We'll do self-introductions with the number of people we have. We can definitely do 30-second introductions today. The thing I would just share with you about the introductions, and we're starting to put more of this in the notes pre-meeting, but as much as you can when you're introducing yourself, certainly your name, your organization, and when you talk about what you do, really make it in the context of your service of international companies, not necessarily everything you do for everyone else, but what are the specific things for international companies, because that's certainly what we're focused on and the context we want to make here as well. And one other thing to share, if you wouldn't mind, when you're doing your introduction, is just something that's exciting you right now. What is it that you're seeing that you're really excited about? And I'll leave it that open. So besides the self-introductions, we're going to have a couple of folks give spotlights. We've got Tim from Osborne Clark, and I don't know if she got my email, but hopefully Joan from Action Innovation Network joins us, and she can do one as well. And then after that, we'll do needs and opportunities. So think of any needs that your clients have. This is when we shift from marketing to serving. And so any needs that your clients have or opportunities that would help your clients, anything like that, then obviously we'll brainstorm on potential solutions or connections. And then from there, we'll just have a couple of closing comments. So pretty straightforward. So I'm just going to go to the beginning of my scroll bar, and I'm just going to go left to right on my scroll bar here. So Jeff Cohen, do you want to introduce yourself? You have to unmute. I'm sure it's brilliant what you're saying, but unmute.
Doing it now. I hadn't started talking yet. I just couldn't find the unmute button. Jeffrey Cohen, now unmuted, from ImageWorks, just outside of Hartford, Connecticut. We are a full-service digital marketing firm. So although we build websites and have won awards for years doing that, our real help is in the digital marketing side and generating online leads and creating traffic and focusing on education rather than promotion. We just found out that sales emails are up 60% in the amount sent and they're down 30% in open. And marketing emails are up 20% in sendouts, and they're up 30% in opens. And the difference is marketing emails are education-based and sales emails are promotion-based. So it makes a huge difference. That's all I got. My story, and I'm sticking to it.
What's exciting you, Jeff? Is there one thing that's exciting you right now, or is that it?
Just the marketing education piece. It's pretty huge.
Cool. Excellent. All right. Thank you. How about Jamie? Do you want to go next?
On mute. There we go. Thanks, Bill. I'm sure I've met a few of you already on these happy hours, but pleasure to see you all. So my name is Jamie Neely. I'm part of Velocity Global on our strategic partnerships team. And Velocity Global is what we reference as an international PEO, but in other kind of probably more direct terms, you can think of it as an employer of record service. So we help companies all over the world expand into other markets when they don't have the capital to set up their own infrastructure within that market. So we have about 15 entities all over the world currently, and we can service 186 countries, including the US, for companies that are interested in trying to open up and test to see if a market is a viable one for whatever service they're providing. A term or maybe an analogy that's most useful that I heard, which is beneficial, is essentially we act as the contractor from a back-end HR perspective on behalf of the company, where they tell us, hey, we've got a few maybe tactical people we'd like to hire in a certain country. And, we need you to build this project. Here are kind of the nuts and bolts. And we say, okay, we'll take it from there, versus kind of putting it on the hands of said company, who really, it's more like going to Home Depot and trying to.
Jamie.
So, oh yeah, so, I was just wrapping up there. Yeah, so I think is what's exciting the most, and COVID itself, obviously not the best thing in the world, but I think what's exciting is that this whole pandemic has changed the way that business owners are thinking about international expansion, where they tended to believe that they needed to set up an office in any given market, and now they're realizing that their business can operate remotely, which completely changes the landscape of how business is going to operate moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Tim, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, Tim Resendez from Osborne Clark. I'll be presenting today along with my colleague Jonathan, so I'll keep it brief. But we're a London-based law firm. We're based here on the East Coast, and we advise U.S. companies that are expanding into international markets, primarily into Europe, but on that growth trajectory into Asia or further afield. I spent about 10 years doing this, did it in Silicon Valley for at the beginning of my career with fast growth tech companies, and then on the East Coast in key markets like Boston and New York primarily. I'm most excited, similar to Jamie, the entire playbook for international expansion and growth, I think, is changing into a transformation of a whole new strategy and structure in which companies will be able to build global revenue. Don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I can see that it's all going in that direction, and giving a talk on it in a couple weeks, which will be pretty interesting.
Cool. Post the talk details if it's open to the public on Slack. It'd be great I'm sure other people would love to hear what you have to say. Cool. Thanks, Jamie. Or thanks, Tim. Katie, long time no see. Do you want to introduce yourself next?
Sure. Hi, Katie Stebbins. I know some of you in different capacities. I think the capacity I'm in here today is I'm president of Global Epic, which is an international cybersecurity consortium. We're 22 countries, 30 ecosystems around the world. And we have a soft landing program to help startups in other countries come to Boston and actually go to each other's ecosystems to have soft landing. So I was interested to be with you guys today and see what I could learn so that I could add value to my work in Global Epic. What I'm excited about right now is spatial computing and simulated environments. I think this is pushing that bleeding edge in a really interesting way. And I'm very interested in how VR, AR, and spatial computing is going to start taking over as a tidal wave.
That's so cool. Thank you, Katie. Great to see you. And how about Joan? Actually, that's a good follow-up to, you guys are very synergistic, I would think. Joan.
Yeah, I know Katie, and it's good to see some people on the screen that I haven't seen in this meetup before, but know you otherwise. Joan Popolo, Executive Director of Action Innovation Network. We're a nonprofit organization, a network of technology business incubators throughout the New England region. On the international side, we're doing some soft landing programs, small cohorts of companies, international companies, mixed countries, in the area industry sectors that we serve here in the region: clean tech, life sciences, robotics, advanced materials, and ocean and maritime. We have actually, you'll be hearing perhaps from Greg Mannix soon, and we're going to be doing one of our next cohorts with Greg in combining that week-long immersion for these companies to include Greg's Resi conference, all done digitally, of course, this time. So we're looking forward to that.
Cool. Because that's what's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I guess the key piece here is that we look at our incubators as potential landing sites, first offices on the ground here for international companies making their US market entry.
Cool. Thank you, Joan. Let's see, how about Mart? Do you want to go next, Mart?
Sure, thanks, and good to see you here, Joe. Yeah, Mark Duitsmeyer. I've seen a lot of you actually already, I think, in these meetings. In the last one, when we were all wearing our orange shirt. I'm heading the Netherlands Innovation Network. We are the science and technology arm of the Dutch diplomatic network to the US. So we help entrepreneurs, researchers that want to go this way or go the other way across the Atlantic. But they have to come from Holland or go to Holland. I think that would be our criteria. What excites me, it's funny you mentioned this weekend there's another big MIT COVID-19 challenge our network is supporting. We are involved as mentors and judges, and we I was there during the last hack. It brought forth a lot of interesting solutions. We might actually look into scaling some of those already startups to the Netherlands. So I'm excited for the next this weekend.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, good. Thanks, Mart. Thanks for sharing that. Jeff Artist, do you want to go next?
Sure, Bill. Quick sound check. Can you hear me okay?
Hear you great.
Quick sound check. Quick sound check.
Yes, I hear you great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure. The inevitable technical difficulties have been plaguing me recently. Glad to see everybody, including some new faces. I'm Jeff Artis, also in the digital space. I'm with IBT Online. We're a specialist digital agency that works with exporters to help them build brand and drive sales overseas with website localization and international online marketing. Pretty busy in webinar world at the moment, as you can imagine. What we're excited about is trade missions are coming back. A lot of the state trade agencies postponed them in the spring. They're now starting to reschedule them for the fall, but with a twist. We're planning a mission to Germany and you can come with us, but if you don't want to come with us and you're nervous to travel, we'll do all of your business development meetings face to face. So that's something new, a new way to keep the value in uncertain times. So starting to see trade missions coming back. We weren't sure when, but starting to be promoted again. So great to see everybody.
Thank you, sir. How about Jonathan?
Hey guys, good to see everyone on the meetup. So as Tim said, I'm Tim's colleague. My accent gives myself away, so I'm originally from London. I was a real estate tech lawyer. Moved over to the East Coast with my family to help support Osborne Clarke on the East Coast with Tim. As Tim pretty much explained us in short terms, and we're presenting a bit later, so we'll keep it brief. The only thing to add is, although our business is set up to assist US businesses expanding out into UK, Europe and Asia, we also hold our clients' hands coming into the US as well. So probably have a lot of good contacts for people in this network when our clients move from Europe and Asia into the US. What am I excited about at the moment? Being a nerdy real estate lawyer, I'm excited about COVID-19 speeding up the infiltration of tech into the real estate market. And on the international expansion or soft landing side, Tim and I are pretty excited, and we had a few conversations recently where clients are not stopping international expansion plans, they're just putting things on hold for 2 or 3 quarters. So we're hoping to see everything bounce back as soon as is safe and reasonable to do so.
Brilliant. Cool. Thank you, Jonathan. And Greg, do you want to go next?
Yes, hello everyone. It's great to be here. This is my first time on this meetup, so I'm glad to see some familiar faces and some that I didn't know. So I'm with Life Science Nation. We connect investors and early stage companies in the life sciences, which is a major economic driver in Massachusetts, as you know. And we work with a lot of international companies to help them fundraise in global markets and help their expansion in general. Just as an example, we have a conference coming up in June. All of our conferences have pivoted to digital. As you can imagine, they used to be on-site conferences in different places around the world. Our conference coming up in June, we have delegations of companies from Australia, Korea, and Israel participating. And it's a way to introduce these companies to international fundraising that they find very, very useful. And just as a footnote, I moved to Boston 6 years ago with a company that was landing here, a European company, a medical device company. So even though I'm originally from California, I had been living in Europe, and I came to Boston to establish the operations of a European company. So I've kind of been through some of the difficulties that you all are helping, we're all helping other companies deal with as they expand to the US.
Perfect. Thank you, Greg. Actually, perfect segue to Alice Sloan, who can echo exactly what you just said. She came with an international company as well.
I did. Alice Sloan from Wolf & Company. I came here 23 years ago. I was just trying to do my mental math to set up and run the inbound investment operation for the British government, which was known as Invest UK in those days. It's now DIT, I think. So time flies when you're having fun. And I love Boston. So Wolf & Company is one of the largest regional accounting firms in the Northeast. We provide audit, tax, and risk management services to a whole host of organizations covering tech, manufacturing, retail, distribution, healthcare, and a significant number of financial service organizations, banks, and funds specifically. And we work with a number of companies that are inbound. So we like the inbound companies who need a lot of hand-holding, where they don't know how to figure out their tax structure to be most tax efficient. If they're in the medical device or healthcare space, they might need assistance with HIPAA compliance. And then if they come here to fundraise, they need to know which way is up from an accounting perspective and to understand when they're going to need a financial statement audit. So those are the things that we're involved with. The thing that I'm most excited about at the moment is the fact that companies are back to doing business. I had a really busy April with lots of proposals being issued. It was back to pre-COVID in terms of activity. So I'm excited, and we're closing deals. And I think I echo everybody else's points about, international hasn't gone away. It's just going to be done in a different way, and perhaps an easier way for everybody to do business.
Cool. Thank you, Alice. How about Wendy, please?
Hi, yeah, I'm Wendy Pease from Rapport International. We connect people around the world across languages and cultures, and things I'm excited for, kind of 4 things. Could narrow it down. One is clinical trials. I just did a talk on that, on the changing face of that. And it's everything from investment into patient recruitment and how to monitor trials and gamifying, keeping patients compliance. So that's real exciting to see what's happening on there. And, there's dreaming and talking about making regulatory and patents global, but I don't think we're there yet. The next thing I'm excited about is the opportunity for chatbots. I mean, I think I just did a webinar on this with a company that does chatbots for government, and government's been slow to adapt the use of chatbots, but now they're realizing, with the lack of people and lack of information, and chatbots are really easy to provide the information in a translated format and really meet the needs there. So excited about that.
So
I'm
if we can
seeing a
condense 20,
huge
that'd be great.
increase for, okay,
I'm sorry, if we can condense,
video
30 seconds.
interpreters. Oh, 30 seconds. Okay, I didn't hear that at the beginning. And then our multilingual marketing assessments. Requests are way up. Business isn't closing yet, but it's coming in.
Cool.
We think
Thanks,
in the
Wendy.
future
Appreciate
when the world opens up.
Dara, do you want to go next? Yeah, and these are, so everybody's clear, these are 30-second introductions, so thank you.
Excellent. Hi, everybody. My name is Dara Sandow. I know some of you. Alice, I know you from my days at UKTI and the Department of International Trade. I actually became a lawyer as a result of that job. I saw a lot of businesses expanding in and out of the country, some of them coming, soft landing, then jumping back, and I saw a huge unmet legal need for these companies, and I went to law school specifically to help them. I actually run a practice, and I also run a consulting business, so I do this in parallel. Primarily in my legal practice, I do a lot of business law, bankruptcy and consumer protection, especially now amidst the COVID-19. There's a lot of issues with small businesses that are collapsing underneath the weight of this pandemic. But on the international front, I also work with companies expanding in to help understand the legal landscape, specifically to Massachusetts and some of the other states in this country with respect to trying to figure out where to soft land specifically too. I just want to put it out there. I know that a lot of smaller businesses expanding into the US sometimes find legal advice to be very, very expensive. I'm trying to create a little bit of a niche in providing some services at an extremely discounted price to help the small business into the country, knowing that they're going to expand and grow. So if you do have companies expanding and they want to get some advice, I do offer free consults on the first time through, and then if there's any work that generates out of it, it's done at a reduced fee. And that's primarily because I find that the bigger firms charge an arm and a leg, and sometimes, although the advice might be great, the budgets aren't there for the smaller companies expanding.
Cool. Thank you, Dara. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Armand, do you want to go next?
Sure. Can you hear me all right?
We can.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Hi, Bill. Hi, everyone. I hope everyone is safe. As you may hear, I'm actually from France. I've been living in the US for 12 years. I was actually the number 2 for a French company here to open their business. I grew from 0 to $30 million. I decided to leave this company in 2019. I'm currently in the board of directors of the French American Chamber of Commerce, where we are helping French or American companies either to start business in New England or in France mainly. So my goal is by being here to try to network, obviously, to meet new people, because I'm also actively looking for my next challenge, and see if I can support any companies who want to learn from the experience I had when I came from France to start a business here, or vice versa.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. Is there something particular that you're excited about?
Well, I'm just new here also, so I'm trying to discover how things are working. And, I've been, on personal point, I loved being in Boston also. I know a few people here, like Alice, and I would be happy to continue my adventure here. That's why I decided to stay in Boston.
Fantastic. Well, welcome, Armand, and certainly hop back in as the conversation goes here. I think we have one more. Kelly, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly with Meet, and we help international companies exhibit at trade shows. What I'm most excited about is the virtual trade shows that I'm seeing. I am shocked. I was part of a conference, we thought it would be 5,000, it turned into 40,000, and it was one of the most interactive conferences I've attended in a long time. So it's really cool to see the innovation, and it makes me excited to be part of this. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you, Kelly. Good stuff. Did I miss anybody? Does anyone not introduce themselves? All right, cool. So I'm going to give just a quick 2-minute overview on Softland Partners. Obviously, we have a lot of new people, and it's always good to sort of level set. On deck, we'll have Tim from Osborne Clark and Jonathan to do their 6-minute spotlight. And after that, we'll have Joan from the Action Innovation Network to do her 6-minute spotlight. So just so you all have a little bit more context on what we're doing. So Softland Partners is a consortium of international and industry trade and investment professionals and international and market entry specialist service providers. And so what we're really aimed at is building through these meetups. We have 11 monthly meetups going on globally now. 5 are in the US and 6 are in the US actually, and 5 are offshore. And what we're really aiming to do is build dense ecosystems for internationalizing and market entry support. And then, of course, build bridges between those so that the market entry companies have a much higher probability of success when they enter these new markets. And we've kind of come to this model from our own company and just seeing how difficult it is for market entry companies, number one, to succeed. And one of the key or challenges that they seem to be facing is finding credible and competent and ethical service providers. And we want to really build that community so that, number one, it solves the problem for our customers, but also, too, that it solves the problem for the marketplace. So we're delighted that you're here with us. We will, for those that are new, we will have a follow-up email tomorrow that'll give you more details. And certainly if you want to join us, please do. And we'll have some time after if anyone wants to ask questions and whatnot on what we're doing. But there's a lot of cool things that are kind of in our pipeline as well, and some really neat relationships that are coming on board. So with that, let's tee up Tim and Jonathan from Osborne Clark to do your 6 minutes. We're going to keep it pretty tight to 6 minutes. So if you guys want to just watch your screen, I won't interrupt you, but I'll have maybe 2 minutes and 1 minute up so you have a sense of time. If for those that aren't familiar with Zoom, if you go to the top right corner of your screen, you can actually activate multiple windows that'll look like Brady Bunch. If you like that view, there are a bunch, it's called the view gallery, so you can see like 20 people on the screen at one time. So anyway, Tim and Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Great. Bill, it says screen sharing is disabled.
And enable it. Let's see. Sorry about that. I should have been, I've never seen it disabled, so I didn't do it intentionally.
Might be on your end, Tim.
I'm sorry?
It might be on your end because I can see many people.
No, screen sharing, Kelly, is what he's saying, to be able to share slides. Yeah, I apologize. I don't see where I can, oh, actually here, let's see. Yeah, it's not telling me where I can release it. It may have been in the setup before.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I don't see where I can change it, Tim.
I think it's in meeting, no? If you go in the setup of meetings, you can see sharing. Does that count, or do you have anything from here? Or is it only for you?
Yeah, I think I can screen share, but I don't see where I'm able to. Yeah, it does say host only. Who can share? Okay, I'm changing it right now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
You may have to give it back to you, though.
That's fine. Okay, you should try it now. Hey,
we
there
got
you
it.
go. Hey, all right.
All
okay.
right. Sorry about the
6 minutes
delay.
is yours.
So just real quickly, Tim Resendez, Osborne Clark. We're just going to talk a bit about what we do as a firm, kind of the background, and talk a bit about that, but then really focus on some client examples and some things like that to bring it to life a bit more. And obviously, it's a little more interesting to listen to. So I'll let Jonathan take it away.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tim. So as Tim said, we're going to try and make this a bit more exciting than just two guys from a law firm explaining what we do, because in this format that could be pretty dry. So our story, in very brief, is we're London headquartered, and we're about 1,200 lawyers now around the world in 25 locations. The part that often impresses our US clients is we were actually founded in 1748, so we're pretty old. And in terms of US age, we're 20 years this year. So as Tim touched on before, we were originally on the West Coast, and so we were in Palo Alto, helping fast-growing tech companies expand into UK, Europe, and Asia. Our niche here is that we don't actually practice US law, but we provide a service for our US clients on time zone in the US to assist with their international business and the expansion and growth and with their scaling trajectory. We advise, sort of our service falls into three categories really. One, we advise US companies on setting up overseas. Two, we tee US companies up with lawyers the world around. So we've got the Osborne Clark offices, and then we've got a very carefully curated network of other law firms that assist us where we don't have a physical office setup. And we also, as I explained earlier, we connect our international client base into US service providers to make sure they get the proper advice when they're expanding into a new jurisdiction. There's a list there of where our offices are. So key hubs in Europe and Asia would be the summary. Our team there are around 10 of us over the US. The core team on the East Coast is on the screen there. So Steve Wilson heads the office up and works very closely with Tim. They came over to the East Coast to set up the office over here after working together in Palo Alto, and they both concentrate on international growth and expansion. I joined the team last September and assist the team with helping US businesses expand, but also my specialism is with real estate and real estate tech businesses. And so I have a focus on that here on the East Coast. Unlike a lot of US firms, we're actually set up in accordance with sector as opposed to service line. And so our sector focus allows us to deliver sort of a full suite of services into the clients that fall within those sectors. And so the 5 key sectors that we have for a US market are tech, media and communications, financial services, retail and consumer, life science and healthcare, which is obviously very important in the Boston and Massachusetts market, and then real estate and infrastructure as well, which is where my specialism sits. So I'll hand over to Tim now to explain a bit more about our expansion practice.
Great, and a big part of the sector strategy is really tied around the digitalization, seeing it across the sectors really. So the crossover into a lot of fintech, life sciences, prop tech, where Jonathan sits, is a really core part of what we do. And I'd say the vast majority of our clients are venture-backed growth companies, primarily with that tech crossover. But then in Boston, for instance, we work with some life science companies or other sectors a bit more broadly. But it's typically the fast growth opportunities that are going into new markets, and we're assisting them setting up and growing around the world. Our key services that are actually pretty different than most law firms that do this work is we are exclusively cross-border in everything that we do. We have an international and growth practice for companies that are then scaling up once they've set up and expanded into international markets. Then we help them around deeper regulatory issues, IP, privacy, and things like that. And then we act as an outsourced general counsel to companies that just have occasional overseas legal issues. Here's our typical kind of path of assisting clients, setting up the subsidiary, engaging the initial employees, and then helping them on the commercial aspects of their business as they're growing and expanding through that life cycle. A few examples, so we'll wrap up on a few client examples here in the remaining minute or two. The good one would be Allbirds, so a fast growth, venture-backed retail company that sells footwear. We help them set up their first offices in the UK, then Germany, the Netherlands, and into the Asian markets. Soup to nuts, every aspect of their business, advising them, working alongside primarily their accountants or some other advisors as part of that full project. And then Boston-based company in Cambridge is Blueprint Medicine, so publicly traded company going into 6 companies over the last year or two, engaging the employees, setting up offices, and running the whole project, doing 6 countries all at the same time, which was a pretty interesting one. And over to Jonathan for the last 30 seconds.
So another Massachusetts company, TripAdvisor. As part of our global growth solutions, we have Global Occupier Services, which is helping businesses manage their international real estate portfolio. The challenge we had here was that TripAdvisor wanted to outsource everything relating to international real estate, and the solution we provided them with was project management and legal services rolled into one, sort of supported by a tech platform that we've got in-house called OC Solutions. And so we took everything off their desk, made everything nice and easy, and the real key win for them being that we understand the cultural differences between the US and other European markets, so that we can work with their advisors in the US as well and make sure they've got consistency across their business.
Cool. Is that your close, Jonathan?
That'll be my close. I'll hand back over to Tim for his.
Yeah, so that's just a very quick tour of what we do for companies in this space, being a law firm exclusively focused on international growth for US companies. Thanks for the opportunity to present.
Cool. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Jonathan. Really appreciate it. Let's have Joan Popolo now from Action Innovation Network. And Joan, do you want to give a little bit of an intro first, then we can do some Q&A, or what's best for you?
Yeah, let's do that. I just found out about this like 1 minute before joining the
well, you're nimble
today, so short notice. But what I'd like to do, I gave you a little brief in the first 30 seconds, but I'll just share my screen right now if I'm able, so that you could have a look at our geography. When I talk about we're a network of technology business incubators, we have all of these members. We're a member organization that are part of our network, spanning from southern Maine through Massachusetts into central Connecticut, and now down into Rhode Island a little bit. And the reason I'm showing you this is because when we talk to international companies, they think Boston, but we like to let them know that there's often more than just Boston. In the greater Boston and the New England region that might be of value to them. And so by showing a little bit of a map like this, we're able to break down the geography into the different sort of areas that are experts or have stronger industry sector focus in different areas. For instance, southern Massachusetts, the South Coast and Rhode Island, it's very much focused these days on the new offshore wind industry that we're building here. And I should say not only there, but down Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, down in even into the Middle Atlantic states, right? So we like to give them the, we like to align them with the people, the facilities, the institutions that would be of most value for them here. And it might not be in Boston if they're offshore wind. Certainly big players are there, but the real people doing business on the ground might be in, you know, the southeastern part of Massachusetts. Likewise, up in Maine, Maine is also doing some offshore activity, wind activity, but also the incubator up in Maine is supporting a lot of advanced composites companies and aerospace, clean tech, you know, and life sciences. And so we like to show them what's going on there. So as we bring companies over in our cohorts and try to match them with the best collaborators here on the ground for them. And I should say that we're working with much earlier stage companies. This is a pre-landing program that we do, and the companies are generally you know, they may be pre-revenue, but they will have $1 million, $1.5 million in funding from grants, from challenges, and those sorts of things. So they have a little bit of money to spend, but they're looking to make their first inroads here. And so that we try to do. And let's see. Yeah, I'd be eager to take your questions. Our pre-landing program, we have a number of different activities that they do in a week-long agenda. That we set them up with one-on-one meetings. We have educational programs for them here to meet the right people in their industry sector, whether it be in healthcare, you know, Mass Life Sciences Center folks, and anyone that can help them strongly on the ground here, so that they make their first connections on the ground. Is there another quick? Okay, so a quick, actually, I mentioned earlier that we're going to be doing a program with a Life Science Nation, where we're aligning our program with theirs in terms of the calendar. And we will have, this is a week of remote activities, of which one day is the Digital Resi Conference, also remote. And then we will work with companies so if this is September, we'll work with companies in October and November to make meeting dates for them with their aspirational meetings that they want to have. And that will also be remote. And then we have a deferred option for meeting people on the ground here and going to different incubators to show them what the culture is there, if that might be a good landing space for them. So I'm eager to take any of your questions about that. It's kind of the calendar and how we're going to be working on this as our next one in September.
Fantastic. We have maybe 1 or 2 minutes for questions. Who has a question for Joan?
So what I'm looking for from the group here are any referrals of companies that we can help through our cohorts that we're having. If they're at the right stage company for that, we can certainly help them on the ground.
So, Joan, I have a question for you. So, say you have a company that is looking to get into part of your network. Do you then think through and make introductions, or do you introduce them to all and then they kind of match make, or how does that work?
You mean meeting up with the incubators?
Yeah.
So what we do is one of the sessions we have will be the incubators will actually pitch to them about their incubator and what their specialty is. Okay. And yeah, and so the companies then know which might be good fits for them. And then we will then allow them to, you know, pair up and go visit the incubators and meet with them. And each incubator has their own offerings. Some incubators have dedicated soft landing programs for them there. And so, you know, it's a best fit process.
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
Cool. We probably need to move on to the next agenda item, but thank you, Joan. It's so nice of you to hop in and do a spotlight today. So thank you. Well, good. So we're on to our needs and opportunities section. So it is let me frame it first because there's a temptation to continue marketing here when we want to kind of put the brakes on the marketing and focus on things that our clients need or opportunities that our clients have, but really where we're solving problems as opposed to selling or soliciting business. So who has a need or opportunity they would like to share? If you're speaking, you're on mute. Katie, I think, oh, there you go. Now we can hear you.
Yeah, I can share. So Global Epic, the cybersecurity organization that I'm with, we've been around since 2017. And we have formal soft landing programs in a lot of the countries that we operate in. I think The Hague in the Netherlands is probably our strongest. Just a really excellent program they have there. Ironically, I'm the president of the organization now on the board, and we don't have an official Boston partner, which is almost embarrassing. so that when any of our Global Epic members want to soft land in Boston, I've always sort of struggled with figuring out where to send them. I've done some individual visits. I've taken them on the tours, you know, send them around all the different hubs and innovation labs. But I would love people to reach out to me privately, or, you know, I'm looking for partners that I can market to all of these 30 different hubs to say, when you've got, you know, when your scale ups want to expand to a US market, to Boston, you know, here's the soft landing organizations that we can partner with. And I've got a host of them who need it, and I have a blank slate. I mean, Joan, I wrote down your name. I'm like, you know, great to connect with people again and realize in a new role, there's great connections to be made, but I definitely need help.
Cool. That's awesome. Thank you, Katie. Let's see, what else? What other needs do we have?
Bill, I just have a quick clarifying question for Katie. Katie, typically when you're looking for those partners to help, you know, your clients enter the Boston market, what are the services that they're requesting?
So they're typically requesting low-cost space. They're requesting legal help, navigating all the different legal issues. They're requesting help with HR. They're usually coming here like the Israeli companies, you know, they're coming here looking for sales and marketing teams. So they're trying to network to tap talent pipelines. A lot of times they're also trying to tap in with R&D centers at the universities, because they know if they tap into a faculty member who can cherry pick students for them, that they can have an ongoing source of talent at the business schools. So a lot of them are looking to network with business schools. But I think first step's usually a location and some initial help just on the legal issues to get through those.
Perfect. Excellent. That was a great question, Jamie. Thank you. Let's see, other questions for Katie, or other needs that you?
I'm not,
okay.
I'm new here, Bill, so forgive me for stepping in, but Katie, I would love to connect with you because it is a niche opportunity, and that's the gap that you're talking about from legal services, is it's very hard to give these people the 1 hour overview of what they actually need to know to help them understand where it's right to set up. So absolutely believe that that's a definite need, and I think it's for a lot of people that are working with soft landing packages. So thank you.
Cool, awesome. Let's see, who else has a need, client need, opportunity they want to share?
Opportunity, I think, Bill, is the Slack channel that you set up for soft landing partners. I'm not seeing a ton of activity there, but on another one I'm on, there's a ton going on. And I posted a link to a global speed networking event. I did speed networking last Friday, and it was a hoot. The platform really worked well. So if anybody's interested in that, you're in a room with somebody for about 5 minutes. And when you look at the list of people who are going to be there, you can choose green face for yes, I want to meet them, yellow, I don't care, and either way, and red, I don't want to meet them. And so I had some really
swipe
good.
Right, swipe left, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Brilliant. That's great. Our global Tinder.
Yeah.
Cool. And I did see that post. Thank you. So anyone that hasn't seen that or wants to find a link, go to Slack. It's out there. And yeah, no, good point for sure, Wendy. It's a great community out there. Other needs and opportunities.
Bill, I don't know if this isn't really a need or an opportunity, but I was interested in Jonathan's response to his excitement around technology companies and the possibility of them taking advantage of, I think, maybe office space or getting back into the real estate market, maybe due to the decreased prices that the pandemic has caused. Because, and I'd be interested in maybe him kind of developing that a bit more, because in my eyes, right, I see opportunity in technology companies focusing on remote work and not being interested in office space and real estate as much as they might have been in the past. So Jonathan, I don't know if you have any more insight there, but would definitely be interested to hear.
Yeah, more than happy to, Jamie. It was, so my point was more that I'm excited about tech businesses coming into the real estate vertical. And so more so, I mean, there was a real need for it and quite a weight of excitement on the East Coast in any way, in any event pre-COVID. But we've had a lot of clients reaching out to us who are looking to scale their real estate technology businesses in a way that they weren't pre-COVID, because they really see an opportunity in the real estate space for the infiltration of tech. So things like companies who provide touchless access, virtual tours, paperless leasing, those kind of things where technology is going to really run a lot of efficiency into the real estate process. At Osborne Clark, we've got a lot of clients in the space already, but it's really where we've had a lot of outreach at this time. It's obviously real estate, along with retail and a few other sectors, have been really hard hit by COVID. And it's what we get excited about is the problem solvers, as opposed to the more traditional businesses. So that's what we're seeing as a real potential growth area post-COVID.
Got it. Thanks for clarifying. Sorry, yeah, I misunderstood that, but makes sense.
Awesome. I have a couple of needs and opportunities to share, and then we'll get things wrapped up and open up the floor for any conversation. So I had a call this morning with a fairly large program in Hungary that's funded by the EU to bring Hungarian companies into certain regions of the US. And their southern New England is a big target for them. So there are a few of you, I'm thinking Joan in particular, they want to connect to the incubator network, but there are probably others of you that will be interested in this. So I just had the call this morning. I'm going to start making introductions over the next day or two. And but you know, for those that are sort of on their short list, I will make sure to make the introduction. Really nice folks, and they're very active in terms of looking to bring companies in. The second thing I want to mention is some of you are familiar with NBIA. We were going to be speaking as a group at the NBIA conference in Boston, which is the International Business Innovation Association. Their conference was going to be late March, early April. Obviously that got canceled or postponed. It's now virtual, June 23rd through 25th. And so for those who are interested, what we were going to do at the in-person event was actually, the NBIA has about 700 business incubators that are members of their global network, and they actually accredit incubators for soft landing. We were going to do a reverse workshop on essentially facilitating the co-creation of a universal market entry readiness assessment. But the idea being that any of the incubators in their system, any of the accelerators or other economic development agencies could have a common tool wherever they are, whatever types of companies they're working with, industry or stage, and be able to apply a common tool to. So obviously, as they're passing them off to other resources, there's a common language being used to be able to support the companies. We're going to do that same workshop on June 25th at 9:30 in the morning. It's something where as many of you that want to participate in it and help facilitate, because there'll probably be breakout groups that happen. It's only this session, because it's virtual, is only 45 minutes, so very short, but really what we're going to do in this session is probably identify what we need to do and then break out into working groups that over the course of a couple of months develop a framework and a draft, and then we'll find a way to sort of finalize the tool. But the more people I sort of talk to about this, it seems like there's a fair amount of demand. Everybody is either they don't have a system or they've cobbled together something that's sort of piecemeal, and it could, I think, provide a fair amount of needed structure to the process. So in any event, if you want to participate in that, just ping me separately and we'll get you involved. But I think it'll be worthwhile. The last thing I just want to mention as an opportunity is, and as you may see other opportunities like this, so I want to share it. There's a conference in London called Going Global. It happens in November. This year it's going to be November 18th and 19th. And so it's about 4,000 or 5,000 attendees, all essentially the trade and investment organizations, service providers, and then companies looking to internationalize in this 2-day conference. And so we're going to be doing a panel discussion there in the late afternoon on the first day, the 18th, and then going straight into one of our meetups. And the meetup will include the internationalizing companies as well. So you may see other opportunities for these types of partnerships where really that's another area that we're really working on to sort of help support the marketplace. So, either, if you're interested in being over in the UK at that time, or you're going to be there, let me know. Or if you see other types of conferences like this that have a similar audience that we can partner with, certainly let us know as well. And for those that haven't heard, one of the things on our roadmap probably will release in the late summer will be a speakers bureau. So to be able to help connect all of these organizations that are, whether it's delegations coming in or even delegations going out, they're always looking for speakers, plus all the conferences. I am sensitive to time, and I know a few folks will leak out as soon as we hit the end of the hour. So I'll just mention 2 things. One is our next meetup. We're doing these monthly. We've been doing them on Mondays. Obviously, with the holiday yesterday, we switched to Tuesday, but will be Monday, June 22nd. When we can get to in person, we may shift days and times, but it'll be the same time for now while we're virtual. And the other thing I mentioned, and we will be much stronger as a network if each of us sort of picks 1 or 2 people between these meetings, and some of you do this without prompting, but the more people we can get to do this, pick 1 or 2 people to get together with, obviously at this point virtually, but we will gain a lot more collectively as we build intimacy with a few. And it's going to be by developing that specific intimacy that the connections really begin to happen. And in fact, the network begins to work, because then other people can share your story and the drums begin to beat and those types of things. And ultimately, our true north, the only thing we're developing this around is the professional, competent, and ethical service and support for market entry companies. And certainly, the more we remove the superficiality to the process and develop intimacy, the more we're going to help that happen. So with that, the formal part of our meeting is closed. We'll keep Zoom open as long as folks want to chat and connect, but feel free to stay on and connect with each other, ask questions, whatever works for you all. I have more iced tea to drink, so I'm here to hang out. Feel free to unmute.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it. Nice to see everybody.
Oh, thank you. So good to see you.
Bye.
Bye now.
I guess people aren't going to stay and chat.
we should have people bring drinks, and then you bring a glass of wine or a beer, and then they hang out. Well, I think we have the hardy souls left. So what's on your mind? What's everybody working on, thinking about?
So are you thinking that this Going Global conference is going to go on in November in the UK? I think that might be a little, virtually would be great.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm married, so I know my ability to read minds is terrible. I immediately surrender to that. I don't know. It's Kelly can testify to that. I can't read minds at all. So yeah, it's terrible.
Awesome.
So yeah, I don't know. And I think either way, we'll have a good opportunity to make connections, whether it's virtual or in person. So.
I'm just curious, with respect to the global companies that are expanding inward into the US, but also outwards, how much has this pandemic really affected the need so much now to have a global footprint? I think now, if anything, I have clients in the UK, and I've serviced clients out of Israel that have, now are starting to really realize that you need to have a presence in time zones. So now is I think that the pandemic has really put this emphasis in place, because you don't have the ability to go out and visit your customers like you used to have, jump on a plane and go. So I don't know if the rest of you are experiencing that with your clients as well.
What is everybody experiencing? I think that's a great question to pose, Dara. What are you guys seeing?
Well,
if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Armin.
Yeah, so I think you're right. It's a big change, obviously, for everyone, and people will have to adjust, right? I think a lot of companies will realize that they can do a lot of things through Zoom. You're right. So people may think that it may be able to, we'll be able to do some saving in terms of traveling expenses, things like that. But at the end of the day, you cannot replace a face-to-face relationship. So I can see a trend where it may slow down a bit, but it won't be down to nothing. You still have to interact and face-to-face because this is how you create a relationship. Zoom is nice as a way to compensate the situation right now, but still you're missing a lot of interaction, right? So I think it will change, but it would be a mix of everything, you know. There is the ability to connect very easily, but I strongly believe that face-to-face is still important.
Do you see there being a difference between B2B and B2C? So consumer, you know, maybe I would just guess there'd be more ability to be virtual, where if you're selling to businesses or selling to governments, it's probably not as easy long term to have virtual selling as a strategy. Thoughts on that?
I've seen.
I think with the business.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, okay, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I've seen different schools of thought on it. And one driver around it's going to be talent. Now that we realize many of these jobs can be done remotely, kind of opens up the world to sourcing talent globally, so long as it works from, you know, time zone perspectives and what the job roles are. So I think Jamie made a point about that, about their service, when he was saying, you know, they can help to engage employees globally. That might drive a lot of the internationalization in a different way, not necessarily going to market elsewhere, but tapping into talent on a global basis, which kind of changes the way businesses can be structured, whether it's going to market or, you know, running the business.
Yeah, you're right. This one is a very dangerous point for individuals like us, obviously, because you can think that they can get someone in a different country at tenths of your salary, of course, right? I think that's a real threat. You're right. Depending on some business, there is a big risk with that.
We're not, as a company, we're not seeing much change in demand, but just the strategy is changing. How are we going to do the service and all that? In fact, I'd probably say the people we're talking to are much more interested in on sort of a full level of service as opposed to shared service where they would, you know, essentially give us sort of full responsibility, where in a pre-COVID it may have been more a shared responsibility. So, and I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dara.
No, I was just going to say, it's interesting because, you know, I've taken a company that had initially tried to soft land in the US and it failed because of the, you know, the structure of the business with the person that they had. And then they brought it back home, back to the English side of things. And then they brought my company on to do all of the lead gen and sourcing the company. So taking a company from, you know, 1 million turnaround and building it to 5 million in just under, you know, 2 or 3 years with my work, and then expanding their team overseas. But now because of COVID, the need is this company may need to come back in with a presence in the US again, because now COVID has thrown up, you know, the barrier of flight, if you will. And Armand, as you were saying, you know, face-to-face interaction and Tim, face-to-face interaction is very, very important, especially for service-based businesses. I'm wondering what the structure is going to be like for product-based businesses, service-based businesses, and then, you know, your software businesses. I'm very curious to see how this dynamic is going to be impacted by the COVID-19, you know, pandemic. So.
I have an example of a company that we're working with right now that's from Spain, and they're in Madrid, but they have one team member, Spanish person, who's on the ground here in New Jersey, which makes it very convenient for time zones and everything to be talking with her. So she's really our main point of contact. but they realize they're early stage, they have some funding behind them, but because they're fundraising, the investors want to see a dedicated office on the ground here in the US to fundraise.
Yeah.
Or if they're looking for funding from any government or, you know, even quasi-state agencies or so on, they need to have a permanent office here.
And that's really,
that's a healthcare company, so they think that Boston, they need to have a Boston office or Cambridge office.
And Cambridge, I can imagine one Broadway, everybody wants to be at the CIC, right? Because you've got the most venture capital in a 1 mile radius, right? For all the global companies. But on top of it all, you have a talent shortage though in Boston. And that's a real realization that companies have to have, when, especially in the life sciences sector, right? I mean, at the end of the day, having the life sciences center that's got $1 billion initiative, they can tap and cherry pick, you know, those students out of college, because the state's going to pay the company to bring them on, right? I mean, to deliver. So you're absolutely right, Joan. I mean, you have to create that footprint, especially where the money is at. And the money is, what, in only 3 or 4 places in the US, tops, you know? Boston, California.
I wonder if that will change at all from the investor's perspective. I mean, they've always been able to do Zoom meetings, but 3 cups of tea,
I gotta run.
guess, right?
Yeah,
Bye,
exactly.
Wendy.
Bye. I'll see you next time, you all.
Good to see you, Wendy.
Bye, Wendy.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I'm just curious too, because I mean, I brought in a translation company that had a language translation company, and they were a one-man band. They had one offering only for their translation, which was very niche, but they brought it over for like a half a year. We tried to get them in market, and they found that they couldn't actually compete because they had one offering, and to get into a CRO or a large, you know, pharma company required that they be on an AVL or approved vendor list, right? At the end of the day, you're not on it, you're not moving in it, right? I mean, so they ended up going back to Israel, and then they ended up doing everything sourcing from there, but they still have a conduit here, should there ever be a need at the end of the day to, you know, have somebody source for their sale or source for their business. But it's a learning environment for a lot of these companies. And this is exactly what I hit my head on constantly. The companies coming in, they'd stay for a month, you do the follow-up or the aftercare, as we like to call it, right, in the soft landing world. And they just would retreat back. And then when you'd ask them what went wrong, they didn't have the right people, they didn't have the right sales, they didn't understand the market. And all of that money was for naught.
I think to your point, Dara, for some of these companies coming from Europe, I think one of the challenges also is patience.
Yes.
Because obviously to start a business, so I did that with my previous company. I started a business here. You have to be patient because you start, you don't have any brand recognition usually when it's a small company, okay, and you're fighting against local companies. And it's costing money just to hire people. Salaries are much higher. That's the first thing when you start to, I'm in Mass Challenge, so I try to help. Last time I helped French companies who tried to come here, and I was working on the P&L, and I was looking at the salary line. I'm like, wow, you're not going to hire anyone with this price, you know? So they think they can get the same price as in Europe, but it's not working. So when you tell them you need to increase that by 50% or 100%, they're like, what? And that's the reality. So they think they can do the business fast. They don't have the patience. And after that, they need also to have enough money to invest, you know, because
but you know, Armand, you hit on the point though with the salary, because a lot of these companies that are expanding in have a European mindset, but the European mindset needs to move out of socialized medicine into the US as a capitalist, you know, country. We don't have that, right? I mean, we have to spend for ourselves and pay, and pay for everything. So the salary costs are shockers, right? What you can get for 35,000 pounds in the UK, you're going to end up paying 80,000 on the ground here. And that is exactly what I did with the UK company that I launched here. Was I took them in. I actually did all of the generation for their company with my team, right? We went out, we found all the customers. We took a rev share of whatever, you know, success fee we got off of it, to the point when we got them enough market recognition where we could onboard to expand their teams globally, right? That was smart. And then all of a sudden they saw the value of what it meant to have somebody dedicated to this market. and still be able to do it at a more inexpensive price without putting them like boots on the ground necessarily here. So,
Yeah.
How
It's a patience
about
game.
the issue of visas, and if there's going to be restrictions on visas, it makes more sense for an international company. We were working with another one from Spain, who has taken an office in one of our incubators on the south coast of Massachusetts. They want to hire a U.S. person here on the ground. As their salesperson, but that sort of eliminates the issue with visas and all of that. And then when they come back and forth from Spain, they say here's some shortened amount of time so that visa is not an issue. More like.
But Joan, you have an added problem with that, because when you start getting into the J1 and J2 visas, all of those have minimum salary requirements, and now they're wanting to bump them to 125 to 145,000 just to be able to carry that. That's a lot of money for a company, and God bless the Trump administration, right? I mean, for making, I don't know where anyone is politically, and this is not political, but they're really trying to make it more centralized, right, to the U.S. to protect jobs here by bumping up that limit. But we have to be real in the era of internationalization. Can overseas companies who have no market presence, no brand recognition, as Armand has stated, can they really afford to make that much of an investment initially with no revenues on the ground?
Well, Bill, we had on one of the first calls that I was on, I'm forgetting his name now, but he did a nice presentation on how much it's going to cost a company to come here. And I just remember it was like ×3, whatever you think it's going to be, ×3, and you might be getting close. So,
well, it probably also depends what region you're coming from too, right? If you're coming from Western Europe, it's going to be different than Southeast Asia. Maybe by a factor of 5 or 10. So yeah, no, it's, but I mean, but the market size, I mean, you look at our market size relative to Canada or Australia, I mean, we're 13 times Australia, 10 times Canada, what are we, 3 or 4 times UK?
Well, North America, it's 1/3 of the GDP is North America.
Right. Well, California is the 5th wealthiest country. So
it's a huge market.
I like that, Bill.
And the other problem with the US is every state could be different in certain things, right?
Definitely,
so, yeah. Regulatory and permitting and all those things.
Yeah, it's a lot of headaches sometimes, yeah. But the advantage that depending on where you are, if it's a B2C, you can capture 350 millions if you do it well. You have also restriction, but it's one market that it seems, I think one of the attractions is also the prices are usually a bit higher, and competition is a little bit less because the barrier of entry, for example, for products in electrical, etc., you have to comply to some standard. And so not all the companies can do that, because you need to pay to get compliant. And so it makes a market quite profitable at the end. Even if everything is expensive, you can sell at a higher price than in other places in the world.
Yeah, you wouldn't throw a manufacturer necessarily in California with all of them.
That's clear.
Oh, just the HR compliance is ridiculous.
Oh gosh,
exactly.
Forget HR now. Now you got
Yeah.
privacy issues on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Could you imagine every tech company coming into California? It's like GDPR for the U.S., but in California only. But it's migrating. It's all going to start migrating throughout.
And then Prop 65 is absurd.
All of it.
Yeah, totally.
All of it.
I rented a car
we
there
see
a couple months ago, and even the rent-a-car had a big Prop 65 warning on it. I mean, it's insane. You could die of cancer by renting this car. I think I might get in a car accident. Can you warn me about that?
But even just the legal issues around privacy, companies don't even think of these things, right? Because again, when you take a country or a company coming out of a country, they're very holistic in their regulations and their laws. But when you get to the US, you get 50 sovereign nations and one overarching body, and all of a sudden you've got to really be careful where and how you operate in each state, because different things can be thrown up at any time. And that's also a very big legal hurdle for for companies to get their mind around that. Why is the tax separate in New Hampshire like than in Mass, right? And why is privacy a bigger issue in California than it is in Massachusetts, right? I mean, all of these issues, and they need teams to be able to support them. But this was, you know, one thing that I continuously saw was just people coming in and then they'd leave, you know, they just couldn't figure it out enough to have enough partners. And I like your group idea, Bill, about coming together with a cohort of trustworthy and value-driven, you know, providers, because I have seen companies get taken advantage of, and it's not fun when you find out how much money they already sunk with one provider. And they got $0 of ROI on that investment, and you just go, whoa, I could have done it better. And then when you come over and, you know, you're doing the business with me, and I'm churning what they weren't able to do in a year, right? And I was able to take it and move it forward. I think it's that sense of trust. You want somebody you can trust wholly to guide your hands through the market that you can find, and that's a great platform.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, one of our motivators, probably the biggest one, was and 100% of our current clients we would position when we met them as damaged children. But the poster damaged child was a wonderful Australian client. They're still with us, but they spent, before they met us, $1.2 million on 2 failed attempts to enter the US. And so, yeah, I mean, you feel so bad for them. And in some cases, you know, they made some bad decisions. But in other cases, they got, you know, introduced to bad actors who took advantage, and maybe not intentionally, but at 10,000 miles separation, you know, it's, you know, what did Winston Churchill say? 2 countries separated by a common language. Yeah, same's true of Australia. And it just, you know, I think anything we can do to help reduce that friction. And the Australian government, Austrade, just put out some statistics, but they, even with their programming, they're finding that only 30% of the companies they help actually succeed at market entry, wherever they're going, whether it's US or Asia or wherever. So yeah, you know, we're seeing more and more statistics that are supporting the depth of this problem.
So where are the failure points at? Because that's the opportunity, right? So right. Is it legal? Is it people? Is it talent? Is it just productivity too? Because companies, especially now, God bless the pandemic, right? Because everybody figured out now that we can do some jobs remotely. But do you have the oversight of that person's productivity?
Or the systems, which, yeah.
Right, or the systems in place. So I guess if we could identify the failure points, then we could really start to build off of a solution that's off of that. And I think it would be interesting to see that report as to where they identified the weaknesses at.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of anecdotal information now, but part of why we want to really push this idea of a market entry readiness assessment forward and make it as universal as we can is to help really begin looking at the data and whether, because I'm sure there's some uniqueness by region and whatnot in terms of the failure points, because, you know, obviously there's different maturity levels by region. But yeah, I'm sure we'll find a top 3 or 5 the real levers.
Yeah, so in part of my bankruptcy practice, you know, 72% of the businesses in the US are small businesses. I'm just curious how many of the global businesses are actual small businesses versus mid to medium size or even, you know, large cap companies.
Yeah, good. Probably on a percent basis, probably a much smaller percent are mid cap and larger, but yeah, I would think probably more scale up ones that are, you know, have some market validation wherever they are and are entering that new market as a second or third new market.
On that point, there was a really good report another law firm did. It's a US firm, but they have a group in London. They basically do what I do in reverse. They're in London working with UK companies coming into the US. And they did a report on that of exactly when in a growth cycle a venture-backed company will raise, when they'll put boots on the ground in the US, when they might do a flip, when they'll take US investors on, and kind of where that was between seed A, B rounds typically. They had really good analysis on it. I can post it to the Slack group. It's a pretty good study.
Good.
Was that Wilson Cincini or?
Yeah, Dan, who
Dan's
definitely
great.
know, don't you? Yeah,
he's a good guy. Cool. Well, this is fantastic. I'm glad you guys hung out. What are any other topics that would be helpful for anyone? Well, fantastic. We're glad you're all here today. And yeah, please do make sure that you connect with at least a couple people between meetings, and we will get so much further, and I think create much more of an impact as we build better intimacy with each other. So that's my one big encouragement.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Bill.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Armand, what is your last name, Armand? I don't see your last name.
Adande. It's Agande.
Oh, great.
Let me see,
Excellent.
yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect.
Adande. Good.
Oh, great. Yeah, I had already misspelled it, so it would have taken me a while.
Yeah, that is the one requirement we have to spell.
Yeah.
Yeah, email addresses are real killer. You can misspell somebody's street address, but you can't misspell their email address.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. All right, everybody. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take care. Cheers.
Thank you.
Next time.
Cheers.
Bye.